The wind howled across the high plains, carrying the scent of pine and snowmelt from the mountain peaks. A wagon creaked its way up the narrow trail, every turn revealing more of the endless wilderness, wild, unclaimed, and merciless to the weak. Inside the wagon sat a young woman, her hands clutched tightly in her lap. Her name was Eliza May, and though she was only 19, her eyes held the kind of sadness that came from too many goodbyes. The world behind her, the little town of Ash Hollow, had spat her out like dust in the wind. Her uncle had sent her north, saying only, "You'll earn your keep there, girl. The mountain man don't say much, but he's got work for hands willing to try." She hadn't been told much else. Just that she was to cook, clean, and keep out of sight of a man named Caleb Hart, a rancher who lived miles beyond the last known trail, a man people whispered about more than they spoke of. Some said he was a hermit. Others claimed he'd gone half wild after losing his wife in a storm. When the wagon stopped at the end of the trail, the driver wouldn't even meet her eyes. "You walk from here," he said. "You'll see smoke from his chimney soon enough." Eliza stepped out, her shoes sinking into mud and pine needles. The air was sharp and cold, biting at her cheeks. She looked up the path, and for the first time in her life, she was truly alone. By the time she reached the cabin, the sun had slipped behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and violet. Smoke drifted from the chimney just as the driver had said. The cabin stood strong against the rising wind, logs thick and dark, roof dusted with snow, and the faint glow of firelight flickering through the window. Her heart pounded as she lifted her hand to knock. The door opened before she could. A man filled the doorway, tall, broad, and silent. His beard was thick, his coat worn, and his blue eyes sharp as the winter sky. For a moment, she forgot to breathe. He looked her over, not unkindly but as if trying to understand what fate had brought to his door. "You're the girl they sent." His voice was low, roughened by silence. "Yes, sir," she whispered. "My name's Eliza May." He nodded once. "Caleb Hart." And then he stepped aside. "Come in. Cold'll bite through that coat before long." Inside, the cabin smelled of smoke, leather, and pine. There were tools hanging by the door, a large table by the hearth, and a rocking chair that looked recently mended. She could tell, at a glance, that this was a place built by one man's hands. Caleb pointed to the fire. "Warm yourself. Supper's beans and bread. Not much, but it's hot." She nodded, thankful but nervous. She'd been warned he was a man of few words, but she hadn't expected him to be quite so large or so quiet. For the first few days, their routine was simple. He worked outside from dawn to dusk, mending fences, hauling logs, or tending to the horses. She kept the cabin clean, cooked what little food they had, and gathered kindling. When he spoke, it was in short, careful sentences, like each word cost him something to say. But what she noticed most wasn't what he said. It was how he acted. When she burned her hand on the stove, he fetched cool water without a word and wrapped her palm with a clean cloth. When a storm rolled through one night and thunder made her jump, he quietly moved her bedroll closer to the fire, without looking her way. And when she ran out of flour one morning, he saddled his horse and rode 2 hours down the trail just to bring some back. No explanations. No scolding. Just silent kindness. Weeks turned to months, and spring came to the mountains. Snow melted into rivers that shimmered under sunlight. Eliza began to hum when she worked, her voice soft and sweet as a meadowlark song. Caleb never said so, but he started coming in from the fields a little earlier each day, listening from the porch while pretending to sharpen his axe. One afternoon, she found him at the stream, mending a fence post that had been washed loose. She offered to help, and he hesitated. Then, to her surprise, he handed her a hammer. "Hold it steady," he said. For the first time, they worked side by side, the rhythm of their tools and the sound of water filling the quiet between them. When the job was done, she smiled shyly. "You don't talk much, Mr. Hart." He glanced at her, the corner of his mouth twitching like he wasn't sure whether to smile or stay silent. "Ain't much worth sayin' most days." "Then maybe you listen instead?" she asked. He paused. "Maybe." Their eyes met for the first time, not as strangers, but as two souls who'd both known loneliness. Something warm flickered there. Neither of them spoke again, but they didn't need to. By summer, the world around them bloomed. Wildflowers lined the fence rows, and the meadow behind the cabin turned gold under the sun. Eliza had grown stronger. Her hands calloused from work, her cheeks warm from laughter. Caleb had softened in small, quiet ways, the way he left wildflowers by the window after a ride, or how he'd fix her shawl when she wasn't looking. But peace has a way of drawing storms. One hot afternoon, a group of men rode up to the cabin. Dust rose from their horses' hooves, and the leader, a sneering man with a familiar face, dismounted first. "Eliza May," he called out, "you've been missed in Ash Hollow." Her stomach twisted. It was her uncle. "I sent you up here to work, not to hide behind some brute of a man." His eyes darted to Caleb. "You keeping her for yourself, Hart?" Caleb didn't move. "She's free here. You'll ride back the way you came." The uncle laughed. "You think you can tell me what to do? She's my kin, my property." Before she could speak, Caleb stepped forward. Slow, steady, towering. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the air like thunder. "She belongs to no one." The men shifted uneasily. The uncle spat on the ground, muttered something and pulled at his reins. "You'll regret this, mountain man." But they didn't return. That night, Eliza sat by the fire, her hands shaking. "He'll spread lies," she whispered. "Say I'm wicked or foolish." Caleb stared into the flames. "Let him talk. Folks like that shout because they're scared of silence." Her eyes filled with tears. "Why are you so kind to me?" He looked up at her. Slow, steady, honest. "Because I remember what it's like when no one was kind to me." The room fell still. The fire crackled softly. And in that quiet, something unspoken passed between them. Something that didn't need words. When autumn came, they harvested what the land had given them. The cabin felt warmer now, not just from fire, but from laughter, shared meals, and the sound of two hearts finding peace in each other's company. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the ridge, Eliza stood on the porch, the wind tugging at her hair. "I used to think being sent away was punishment," she said softly. "Now I see it brought me here." Caleb stood beside her, silent as always. But after a moment he said, "Sometimes the hard road's the only one that leads home." She turned to him, and in his eyes she saw not the fearsome man the town had whispered about, but a heart that had healed quietly, one day at a time. Winter came again, but this time the cabin wasn't lonely. Two voices filled it now. One deep and quiet, one warm and steady. Together, they faced the storms that once frightened them both. And on one still morning, with snow drifting against the window and firelight dancing on their faces, Caleb reached for her hand.